these are ultimate bust of signings that their organization's gone on to do.
Right.
Allow me to bring up a couple of other veteran names.
Go ahead.
Deion Sanders passed his prime. Bruce Smith passed his prime. And I'll leave the list right there because I'm not here to pile on to NFL all-time great players who ended up going to a dysfunctional franchise because of an owner who threw them a boatload of cash knowing that he probably shouldn't have done that. Maybe he didn't know that. I'm not here to pile on to them because I don't blame them. I would have taken the cash as well. I would have. It's nice. But for the Washington Redskins fan base, it has not been very nice for the better part of 20 years. And it's just very shameful to me because I don't think people realize, especially in my generation, how much of a blue blood NFL organization the Washington Redskins really are. Very much so that I don't think we realize how much of a blue blood organization the New York Knicks are to the NBA. Simply because they have been absolutely terrible for the better part of 2 decades now. And that goes on no one but James Dolan and his ineptitude and him just not being able to get out of the way. Same thing with Daniel Snyder there. He just can't get out of the way and allow things to flow naturally.
All right. Let me go a couple different directions because you've given me a lot to bite on here. Number one, and it pains for me to say this, that the Detroit Lions, a lot of people back home would like to see the Ford family sell them. That won't happen. You know, there's certain jobs where if you land them, you don't get other opportunities. Unfortunately for Detroit, that's been the case. Jim Caldwell never got hired again, and the list goes on and on, although he left with a winning record. But at least I'll say one thing about the Ford family, and that's this. They are patient. They get out of the way of their coaches. They let them do their job. I think the only problem that you have with the Ford family is they've missed on lots of them as well. Like, for example, many years ago, long before you were born, they had a chance to get Chuck Knox, an assistant coach. He goes to the Rams and does a lot of things. They hired Monty Clark. You know, that was a bad gaffe, and they had another opportunity at Knox. They never got him. And a lot of other coaches that went there never got hired. Wayne Fonts never got another opportunity when he left there, which he should have done it. And the list goes on and on. But the Ford family, at least they get out of the way. They may not make the right hires, but at least they give their guys with patience a chance to try to work it out. So I won't criticize the Ford family in that sense. Now, let's go back to the two organizations that you've referenced to, okay, where you have meddling owners. The Fords are never meddling owners either. They never have been. I mean, once upon a time, I never thought I'd see this, but they paid Matt Stafford $40 million bonus, which was unheard of back in the day when Russ Thomas was the general manager. And I know that this is way over your head, you know what I mean? That Russ Thomas was about the most tight-fisted individual on the planet. William Clay Ford went ahead and kept him around because of his ties to Ford, and he did a good job with the books. But then Ford said, once you hit 65, you retire, you move on, because Ford was the ultimate company man. You know what I mean? Now, back to the other two teams. The Knicks are an absolute mess. Now, I don't take anything into account what NBA players say, because I really don't care anyways. But even Kevin Durant made a comment that was a shot at the Knicks, although I don't care what Kevin Durant has to say anyhow. And I think the hiring of Phil Jackson was a mess out in New York because Phil Jackson didn't put in the time that he needed to put in order to make that organization work. He did. You want the triangle offense run? Go out there and coach yourself. Don't expect other guys you bring in to go out there and do it. Take the fall for the record. You know what I mean? And then off of your philosophy, which probably wasn't any good. But yeah, I mean, you know, James Dolan is James Dolan. But Daniel Snyder, really? But you talk about two jobs where if you leave the Knicks, you're not getting hired. You leave the Redskins, you're not getting hired. And Jim Zorn, to me, I think he should have been the head coach initially rather than being the offensive coordinator moving up. I think that was a little backwards as far as I'm concerned. Jim Zorn was an excellent offensive mind.
Well, the thing is this. I believe they had other candidates in mind who they wanted to hire as well, but there were other attractive jobs out there as well. Because there was still this belief at the time that the Washington Redskins were still this glamorous organization. And I'm going to piggyback off of that, basing off of what you brought up here with what Kevin Durant said. First of all, you're absolutely right. I don't care about him saying that the New York Knicks are not the cool organization. Okay, you don't go join somewhere because it's the cool organization. You don't do that. If you want to go join somewhere, it's really just based upon how you feel about it. Me personally, if I'm a professional basketball or a professional basketball or professional athlete, I'm going somewhere with a winning culture. Or I'm going somewhere with a culture where winning can be established. I'm not going somewhere because it's cool or it's a party town and it's this and it's that. The Raiders are one of the cool organizations in the NFL. They've been on the better half of being in ineptitude and just pathetic since the 2002 season came to an end. Okay? So you don't just go join somewhere because you think it's cool. So that's one thing there. But to your point about Phil Jackson as well, listen, everyone knows he didn't ever want to be back in the Knicks organization. He wanted to be with the Lakers, point blank, period. That's what that was all about. He wanted to be with the Lakers because, remember, before Mike D'Antoni was hired as the head coach of the Lakers to take over that 2013 team, which was a mess, but everybody thought was going to overachieve, including me at the time, with an older Kobe, an older Steve Nash, and a Dwight Howard who his heart was never really in it, and Pau Gasol, who was aging, Metta World Peace, who was on the back end of his career as well. Phil Jackson was supposed to get that job. He didn't get it because Jim Buss had some gripes to pull with him. Pettiness on the part of Jim Buss. But that's where Phil Jackson wanted to be, because at the time, Jean Buss was still his fiance, and he still had great ties with the Lakers organization. And then it's California, it's sunshine, it's great weather. So, I mean, we understand that. So he never really wanted to be back with the New York Knicks organization. And when it comes down to him coaching, I didn't see that happening again unless it was going to be with the Lakers organization.
Right.
But Kurt Rambis was a mess of a head coach in Minnesota. What
Right.
made people think he was going to go to New York and be a successful head coach with the Knicks just because Phil Jackson was hovering over his shoulder? That was a mess all the way around anyway. Derek Fisher, I mean, please. Now, I'm not here to question that Derek Fisher is a bad basketball coach or anything like that, but I will say this right now. I think had Steve Kerr taken that job with the New York Knicks, he would have ended up with the same exact results that Derek Fisher did, because Phil Jackson, like you said, he wanted people to come in and run the triangle offense.
Right.
And unless you have Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, players like that, you're not going to have guys who are going to come in and know how to run that triangle offense properly. Carmelo Anthony was not the superstar to try to build a triangle offense around. Number one, if you're going to play in the triangle, you have to have guys who are willing to play on both sides of the basketball. That was never Carmelo Anthony. So let's get that point out of the way. Now, getting back to Daniel Snyder and that inept Washington Redskins organization, I mean, you brought up the point earlier, Scott. Mike Shanahan was the head coach there, and he only went to the playoffs one time. This is the same Mike Shanahan who turned the Oakland Raiders franchise around in the late 80s, early 90s, just didn't get along with Al Davis. This is the same Mike Shanahan who's responsible for putting an offense together around John Elway that allowed him to go out on top with 2 Super Bowl rings. I mean, this was a superstar hire, and they absolutely fumbled that one. So, at this point, I just know, I don't think I know Daniel Snyder is the issue with the Washington Redskins organization. I just know that at this point. And I just know that things are not going to turn around until he gets out of the picture. Unfortunately, he's not going to fire himself, and there's nobody else that can fire him. That's the unfortunate part in all of this. Same thing with James Dolan in New York.
True, but meanwhile in Washington, okay, Daniel Snyder still does last because he has a rabid fan base, and if they do start winning again, he's going to collect billions of dollars because of where he's at. James Dolan, on the other hand, will continue to play to empty seats if this trend continues at Madison Square Garden. He really will. where the Washington Redskins fans, I've seen a few games out there, both at the old RFK Stadium and over in Landover. That's a pretty good fan base if you give them something halfway decent to look at. It really does. I mean, the RG3...
Well, we saw that in 2015. The last time we saw that, honestly, was 2015 when they won the NFC East and made the playoffs. That was also the year that Kirk Cousins was a Pro Bowler. Now, of course, they went out and they lost to the Green Bay Packers. But I want to take you back to just a few weeks ago, Scott. Monday Night Football. The Washington Redskins hosting the Chicago Bears. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the fans that are out there. I'm hearing that crowd reaction. And the Bears are absolutely stomping a hole in the Redskins at that point. And I'm just listening to the fan reaction from start to finish. And if I was watching that game with my eyes closed, I would think that the Chicago Bears were having a home game.
Sure. Well, let's face the reality. You know, there probably are a lot of Chicago residents in the D.C. area. It's a very transplanted area as well, being the nation's capital. And the Bears draw well anyhow. But, yeah, I think there's no question about that. I really think you're right. I mean, the organization's gone downhill. Once upon a time, okay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a waiting list for their tickets. Not the case anymore. I mean, you do have to win. And the longer you're down, you're going to lose that waiting list until you ultimately play those subpar capacity stadiums. That's just how it is. But the Redskins are definitely a mess. They're 0-5 record. Who would have thought that two teams that once met in the Super Bowl back in the 70s, here we are in the year 2019, are going to be going at it 0-5. I mean, really?
It's a game that I don't believe anyone is looking forward to, but I'll say this point right now before I touch on your Bill Callahan point, because I do have some things I want to say about that.
By all means. Go ahead.
I believe more than likely the Miami Dolphins will get their situation turned around much quicker than what the Washington Redskins will get turned around.
Oh, no doubt.
Because I believe the Miami Dolphins at least have a plan of what they want to do going forward. They're tanking. They're going to be bad. They want to get younger again. They want to build a new foundation. They want to build a new culture. That's whether Brian Flores will be the coach or not. We'll have to see about that. We'll see if this is a one-and-done year for him like it was for Steve Wilkes in Arizona. We'll have to see about that. But we do see that they at least want to build a new culture there. We don't know what the Washington Redskins want to do. They have a rookie quarterback in the building that half of the team, as far as the front office and the coaching staff go, they didn't even want. And now there's a growing sense in the building from what we're hearing in the past few days that more people in the franchise who make those executive decisions don't want him there. Well, so this is just a bad situation all the way around.
Let me preface a couple things you just said. Okay, number one, the Miami Dolphins are not tanking. Okay? They're not tanking. They're just bad. Okay? Hear me out. I live here. They're simply bad. They're stockpiling draft choices, without a doubt. And you know what? And Brian Flores is a 5-year deal, and I do believe that he will see that 5 years. I mean, that's the direction that they've... How do you think the guy got a 5-year? Do you think he would actually give up a job with Belichick if he didn't have enough guarantees to make it through the 5 years? And you know what? If he isn't coaching after year 2, he's getting a paycheck from Stephen Ross, who's got billions of dollars anyways. They are not tanking Xavier McKnight. They're simply bad. Period. That's what I think, okay? That's what I think. But they're stockpiling the draft choices, with all due respect. Now, back to your point with the Redskins, okay? You're right. They don't have a plan. They don't have a coach. And now you're going to get to a point where you're going to run into a situation where nobody wants a job. Let me bring another interesting example to the mix, since we're talking about the Redskins that's not even related to pro football. Let's talk about the Tennessee Volunteers football team. Okay, they botched on the Greg Schiano potential hiring, and that's been a downhill spiral as well. Do you follow me? So nobody wanted to even go ahead and go coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. They did not, because that's a sinking ship as well. Interesting analogy, right? You never saw that one coming, did you, Xavier? The Tennessee Volunteers.
It is an interesting analogy, and it also, and I'm glad you brought that point up, because, let's bring it up to everyone how the Tennessee Volunteers are another one of those blue blood SEC football teams and organizations as well. The losing that we've seen them do for the past better part of 15 years not really